Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Bree Buonomo. Hi if you're new here, or hey if you've been here before. And today, I know it's a little bit into 2022 already, but never too late for this kind of video. And I'm going to be asking you guys to choose 5 books for my 2022 TBR. So these are going to be books that have been sitting on my shelf for way too long. And I just want to know if I'm ever going to get to them. So by this point, I figured why not make this kind of fun and get some engagement from you guys and have you choose the TBR. So the way that I thought this would be fun to do is, back in 2019, before I started my channel, they used to have this option on YouTube where you can put a poll in the video while you're talking about it. And legit, I think the month before I started my YouTube channel, they stopped doing that and they just moved polls to the community tab, which is cool, but I don't want just a community tab post. I really wanted to be able to talk through things and explain my reasoning. So what I'm going to do for this video is I'm going to give you 5 pair-ups. So there's going to be 10 books total in this video, but each of them are going to be paired for a specific reason. And I am going to have you guys choose between the 2 books in that pair. And the books with the most votes, I am going to read throughout the year 2022. While I'm doing that, after this goes live and after I start getting some of the votes together, I probably won't start reading until the end of February, beginning of March, so that you guys will have like a month to vote. And then I'm gonna just film a vlog for however long it takes me to get through these books. But these are gonna be 5 books that I have to read this year and report back. A lot of these books, I have the whole series too. Like the majority of these books are series and I own the entire series for them. But for one reason or another, either I have just never gotten to them, the interest started to wane, and to be honest, I really need to free up some space on my shelves. And if I am not going to enjoy the series, I might as well just get rid of or donate the books that I'm not going to read anymore. And for some of these series, they're pretty long, so I can give quite a few new books homes on my shelves. So that was kind of the explanation. I think it'll make more sense as we move into the video. So without further ado, let me just start talking about the books that are going to potentially be on my 2022 TBR. The first round of books to choose from are fairy or fae type of books. The first one is The Iron King by Julie Kagawa, and this is going to be battling Wicked Lovely by Melissa Marr. Both of these books are like late 2000s, early 2010s books about fairies. And yeah, we kind of had like a fae renaissance in the last couple of years, I think, where the fae itself has become like an entity. And granted, the fae has always been like a broad term, but like we've been seeing like high fae. So these are pretty classic fairy-esque books. The first one is The Iron King. Now this has actually gotten a continuation in the series. So you might have seen the Iron Fae around, and this is the first book. This was published in 2010. And I actually, oh my God, I do have a bookmark in here. Look at that. I got 80 pages in here. It's actually kind of impressive. I forgot I got that far. But yeah, I tried to read this once before. I don't know if this is going to be my cup of tea. I think the writing style is a little outdated, and I'm also afraid it's going to be the same with this, which is why I'm not sure if I want to keep either of these series, and they could be on the chopping block just for the fact that I've had them forever. So let's talk about The Iron Fae. The Iron Fae is kind of your typical, I think, chosen one story where you have a teenager who is in high school, and there's definitely something about her father. Like her father disappears, and eventually as she's going into a high school, something is watching her from afar, and she ends up finding out that it is the Fairy King, and she's kind of now a pawn in a mythical war. So it definitely sounds interesting, and this is a 4-book series with a continuation now. I don't know how many books are going to be in the continuation, but I do own all 4 of the original series. Now, Wicked Lovely is a little bit older. This was published in 2007, so this probably would have been better to read when I was actually in high school, because this is when it came out. So I believe in this series, the fairies are actually known, but you don't want to mess with them. They're pretty classic fairies where they're dangerous and they will try to trick and allure you. So I do think the fairy lore is pretty true in this series. I don't know much more about this. I've never tried to read this book. I am a little, like I said, worried about this because it is so old now. And I will say, like, quality of writing has just increased so much over the years for the better, which is great. But It's a pretty quick read. I again own the entire series plus like the collection of short stories, and I'm just curious to see if I would like it. So between these two books, let me know in the comments which one of these two you think I should read. Next, these two aren't exactly comparable, but I'm gonna go with The Hollow by Jessica Verde and Alice in Zombieland by Gina Showalter. The reason I chose these two books are because they're both favorite books of my friends. This was actually gifted to me by my one friend because it is her favorite series of all time. And this one I got at a library sale. Obviously it has like the library covering on it, but I believe that one of my other best friends loves this series and has read them all through. So I've never read either of them and I don't know much about them, but I will start with Alice in Zombieland because this is a pretty easy one to talk about. Basically, it is a Alice in Wonderland retelling. I have been pretty burned with Alice in Wonderland retellings. So this book, I believe, follows a girl named Alice, and all her life her father has told her that monsters are real, and at some point in the book, she finds this out, starts to believe in the monsters, and has to essentially fight for her whole life. Now, I'm assuming that the monsters are zombies, and that's really all I know. To be honest, the description is pretty vague. Like, that's essentially what it is. And other than Alice in Wonderland retelling, I don't know much more about it. I don't own the whole series of this. I only own book one, but it is from 2012, and it's been sitting on my bookshelf for quite some time. Contending with that, I was assuming this is not a retelling, but I think there is some elements that were like taken from other beloved stories in this, and they're both urban fantasy. And this one takes place in Sleepy Hollow, New York. Something happens to the main character. She loses her best friend, like her best friend disappears, and as like she's trying to deal with this and understand what's happening, a mysterious boy shows up and has a secret of his own, and there's a bit of a love story. This is a trilogy. It's from 2009, and yeah, I think it's gonna be your classic paranormal romance of the late 2000s. I did try to read a little bit of this, I think, at one point, and I don't know if it's gonna be my jam personally, but my friend gave it to me, and I do feel like I should at least try to read it. So for this battle, you can pick between Alice in Zombieland and The Hollow. Like I said, both a little bit urban fantasy. This is a retelling. This has some hints of retelling vibes, but not an actual retelling. And both have to do with trying to work through secrets and fight for their survival. All right, next on the list, we are going to have two more urban fantasies that are witchy related, and that is going to be The Alchemist by Michael Scott and The Summoning by Kelly Armstrong. And Kelly Armstrong was like such a contender and YA paranormal back in the day, and I know she's still writing, but I think she's shifted gears quite often. The Alchemist was also like a pretty popular book series. It was like one of the first ones that I ever got with deckled edges, and I've never read either of them. You know, this is why they're on the list. But this follows a young girl who things start kind of changing for her. She starts seeing the dead. She ends up being in a group home, and the group home's not quite what it seems. And what I'm assuming is she starts getting into some kind of a witchcraft circle type of thing. So she's, you know, starts to question things and gets caught up in whatever that is going on at this group home. Don't know much more than that, but it was a book that I had been really excited for back in the day. This came out in 2008, and I just never read it. After being so excited forever, I never got to read it. So this book, I believe, it follows what Nicholas Flamel left behind, like when people in the modern day try to discover his secrets left in his tomb. And I don't know if they're going to bring him back or they find out that he actually achieved immortality, but they're definitely trying to figure out what Nicholas Flamel was onto. And it is a young adult book from 2007, and I feel like it's also going to be along the same lines of maybe there's some adventure, maybe there's some romance, I don't know. But I feel like these both kind of contend, because even though this one is about a person in the past, and now we're looking at the present, they are both like contemporary urban fantasies, and they're both from almost the same year, so I figured these would be up for grabs. I do think that I should get rid of these series if I'm not going to read them, because it has been over 10 years and they're still sitting there, and I just feel like I should not keep them both on my shelf anymore. Now the next two books are The only ones on this list that don't have sequels are also adult, like contemporary titles or like historical fiction. I don't know. The reason that I picked both of these books are because their covers just remind me very much of each other. I got both of these books for free at one point, and I probably would never have found them otherwise. But that would be Rabbit Cake by Annie Hartnett and Who is Vera Kelly by Rosalie Knecht. And like I said, I just feel like the covers, like with the bright colors and the like drawing style, looks very similar. I personally don't think... No, they're not even... Oh, no, they are. They are the same. They're the same cover designer. So this makes sense. Yeah. So they're both cover designers. That's why I'm picking these. So let's start with Rabbit Cake. So Rabbit Cake is supposed to be what's called a darkly comic novel about a young girl trying to figure out her place in the world. So apparently she knows like a lot of random facts, and she is trying to process the grief of her mother dying. It does seem like maybe it's a slice of life, like trying to come to terms with grief. And I do feel like this might be like a good book to read because of my job. And if this is a book about grief and it works really well for me, I might be able to recommend this to clients, especially as I start taking on adult clients. Now, the other one, Who is Vera Kelly by Rosalie Knecht, I kept this book because it is a historical fiction in a style that I think I would gravitate towards. So it follows a woman who is in New York City in 1962. She is a gay woman and is trying to, again, fit in and blend into the gay scene. And while she's just living her life, she ends up getting recruited by the CIA to be an undercover agent. So it sounds interesting. Plus, like, again, with the LGBT potential rep, I think I would be interested in it. So I would like to maybe see this and get it off my TBR shelf. So for the next one, you guys can vote on Rabbit Cake or Who is Vera Kelly, and let me know which one you think I should read. And the last two, we are going to go back to YA / maybe new adult. I don't know. I think it's technically young adult, but we're going to go with urban fantasy again. And we're back with Kelly Armstrong and The Calling, as well as Night World by L.J. Smith. So L.J. Smith wrote The Vampire Diaries, also The Secret Circle. And I have these bind-ups. So there's 3 of these bind-ups, and each of them have 3 books in them. So for the purpose of this video and this challenge, I would like to get through one of these bind-ups. My one friend absolutely raves about this series, and it was one of her favorites, so I wanted to always read it, but I never did. So this one follows a couple different stories. So there's Secret Vampire, Daughters of Darkness, and Spellbinder, and it has your classic vampires, witches, and all those kind of magical creatures that we love and adore. I do think the series, like, interconnects, but each of them are like on their own, so you can read the stories in any order. You don't even have to read all the books in this to like get one out of it because they're all on their own. But I do think they'd be quick reads. This bind-up was released in 2008, and like I said, it's the bind-up. I don't think they were initially bound, so they're probably even a little bit older now. But I feel like I should just read it and maybe get some of those, you know, vampire vibes. As I'm writing my own vampire story and some urban fantasy, I feel like maybe connecting with my roots might be good. On the other hand, we have The Gathering by Kelly Armstrong. Not the first time she's on here, but like I said, she was kind of like a queen back in the day for young adults. And this one released in 2011. I believe this was started at like near the conclusion of the Summoning series. And I don't know if it's a spinoff, to be honest. I didn't look that far. But similarly, it is a 16-year-old girl who has always been kind of different. Like, she has a paw print shaped scar or a birthmark or something on her. And of course, she moves into a town where things aren't as they seem. There's a bad boy, and I think it has to do with werewolves. So I don't, again, know much more about that. But I feel like, again, I just have all these on my shelves and I've never read them. So for the last one for this whole 2022 TBR, let's kick off and maybe get rid of some of the books that I've been holding for over 10 years with Night World or The Gathering. And with that, those are going to be the 10 books that are going to be going head to head. So like I said, let me know down below which of the books and my terrible descriptions for them sound the most interesting and what you think I should read and maybe give some feedback on. I will leave this up for about a month before I maybe start reading any of the books, so you guys don't have to worry about trying to watch this and vote immediately. But yeah, out of all the pairings, try to pick one of the 2 books, and you can choose one for every single matchup, so that I will have 5 books to read in 2022. And by the end of 2022, I will then decide if I'm going to keep the other series that didn't win. And maybe if I do decide to keep them, maybe I'll try to read them in 2023. Otherwise, maybe we'll just do this again. I have so many books to read. I could have probably done 20 matchups with how many books I've been having on my shelves for so many years. And that's not even touching like the classic books that I still have to read. So I could easily keep doing this from now on. So if you like this idea, definitely let me know. Maybe I'll try to do this every year. But let's start slow. Let's start with this one and let me know what books you guys want me to read. Until next time, I'll see you then. Bye.